All right, good morning, everyone. It is Friday. We got a rock star agent broker. We got Justin Cambra here. Chris will be joining us. He's grabbing some notes, but so welcome, Justin. It's been a while, man. How you been?
Man, it's been really good. I feel like I was texting a friend this morning. I feel like it's a tale of two halves where my agent business is the best it's ever been, right? And growing. And then my real estate portfolio, I've been experiencing some challenges. I'll put it that way. I'm sure we'll dig into that more.
Cool. Yeah. So maybe quickly, it's been a while since you've been on. Maybe
Uh-huh.
give my audience a little backstory on who you are and where you invest and where you're an agent at.
Perfect. I live in Seattle, Washington. So agent wise, I help people build wealth within typically 1 hour of Seattle. Now, do I help people invest out of state as well? Yes. And then in terms of where I invest, when we first met, I was predominantly in the Midwest, and I had about at the peak it was 45 properties in 4 states. That was in 2022. So that's Seattle area, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Detroit, Michigan, Des Moines, Iowa. The last 2 years, or actually the 3 years, I left the corporate world, went full time investor and agent, and then I've been focusing on less is more. So I've been downsizing and reshifting assets from the Midwest into the Seattle area. And so now I'm at 33 properties, 91 units, and about half of the assets are now in, I'll call it 1 hour of Seattle. So as I sell and I 1031, buy something over in the Seattle area, and because it's in Seattle, I can be my own agent on all that stuff. So, but now I'm out of Detroit. I'm just in Des Moines, Iowa, Seattle, Washington, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And at my peak, I had 4 partnerships. Now it's me. I own outright 29 properties, not like paid off, but by myself. And then I have a partnership that has 4 properties in.
Awesome. So yeah, if anyone wants to know more, Justin's Instagram link is in the chat, and so is Chris, who's going to introduce himself soon, but his X page. But if not, Justin has also been interviewed on my channel, so go check that out. But Chris, what's up, man? It's been a while. Why don't you fill everyone in on who you are and where do you invest?
Sure, and still trying to hook up my headphones here, but I'll still talk to you guys. I'm out in Lynchburg, Virginia. I have 9 units out here. I have one in Florida, and kind of grew pretty quickly at one point, and I've been trying to just kind of stabilize that growth. I've moved around a lot. Mark, you know that I also um, I go to school and I have a couple different jobs, and I actually just got another job teaching. So I'll be teaching for 2 schools in addition to the school that I work at. I'm just kind of your normal W-2 investor. Slow and steady wins the race. I am starting to explore looking into doing some lending and also doing some partnerships, just to kind of get that scale a little bit more, quicker, because I'm not getting younger. And that is unfortunate thing about age is it just goes up. So, but yeah, I'm out in Lynchburg, Virginia. I enjoy it out here. It's a very unique area of the country. We're surrounded by mountains, but we're also surrounded by, most of the time, crystal clear rivers and lakes. It's beautiful out here. Um, it's in my opinion, a hidden gem. So
Awesome. Yeah. So if anyone wants to follow Chris, like I said, his X page is there. Super smart guy. Economics, a lot of data. So go check him out. I don't know. I haven't seen it much from your YouTube recently. Are you still trying to push that or?
I think I started it a while back to learn how to do cash on cash investing. So a lot of my older videos are I'm just pulling things off Zillow and I'm running through the calculation. And it was so that I didn't have to spend 30 minutes in front of a house figuring it out. It was so that when I drive by a house, I can literally do it on the backside of a paper. Well, I needed to practice. A lot of math, you've mentioned I have an econ background. I do have an advanced degree in econ. I'm going to school now for my PhD in business. There's a lot of math involved. Math is all practice. it's all practice. So I just said, you know what, I'm going to start practicing, but rather than just doing it on the kitchen table, I'm going to do it on YouTube. And ever since then, I kind of stopped doing that because I know how to do it now. I have added in a few econ specific things. I think I did one on Airbnbs not increasing or not lowering the price, even though the supply would increase. Just little insight things like that. I haven't done a video in a very long time.
All right, I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Just want to say good morning to Flavio, tuning in from Grandview, Washington. We got John here, late start wealth. He's working OT. Looks like Troy is here. I don't know if you got to. Oh, it looks like maybe you didn't, but says, "Hey Justin, I'm in Mount Vernon. I'd love to connect and possibly meet up for coffee." So Justin was at the ORAD event both years. Troy was also there, but Troy has informed us that he won't be able to make it this year. So maybe you and Troy can meet up, Justin. Yeah, before I give Justin. I know his YouTube channel has kind of stalled. I know he did start it, but he's very busy. So he's pretty much on everyone else's channel. I see him a lot of videos, a lot of interviews recently. So go follow him there. But this topic, I think he's going to kind of dig into what he's working on. I know Thatch was just on live in the school community recently, kind of talking on this topic. And I saw Justin on one of Thatch's videos or reels recently sitting on stage with him. So maybe you can kind of dig into the detached ADU and why you're going down that route, Justin.
Yeah, it's the hottest thing for investors in Seattle is single families with DADUs on them. And one, yes, it's great at wealth building, but two, it's one of the really the only ways to make money in real estate today, where it can have huge upsides and fairly minimal downside, right? Because when you're forcing that much appreciation, i.e., adding another one or two housing units, the spread between the cost to build and what you can sell it for is wide enough to where you can win. If you just rewind 3 years ago, to 3 to 5 years ago, the hottest thing in Seattle and really all of the U.S. was BRRRR, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. Obviously, once the Fed raised the interest rates and basically doubled rates, you can buy rehab and rent, but the old refinance and repeat, that basically was broken. So the only way to compete and to grow your portfolio and make money today is the single family and DADU play. Now, this is specifically more so tighter areas with limited land. So like your San Francisco's, your LA's, your Seattle's, all the major metro areas are going to be your key spots. So now, with that said, some people are using it to generate income. Some are trying to build wealth, i.e., long-term hold, and then there's a little bit in between where they keep one, sell one, right? And so, I'm working on mine right now, my first project, and I'm learning the process. It sometimes takes a little bit longer depending on your property. So if you have a flat lot and no environmental condition areas, you can go much faster. But I have a slope lot with trees and an environmental condition area. So um, sometimes I choose to figure out the hard way first so that everything's easier. And so by default, that's what I did. But still, it's a no-brainer how to make money or BRRRR in today's market. And that's really what I spend most of my time doing today. I'm trying to find these off-market deals, obviously, for myself. But as an agent, I'm helping people within 1 hour of Seattle do the exact same thing. So we actually just closed on a property yesterday where it is a single-family DADU, but it's a multi-level strategy. It is a single family where it's going to be their primary residence. They're going to convert the bottom floor into a medium-term rental because they're next to a hospital. They do have a backyard that just so happens to connect to a side street. So before buying it, we worked with that client in the city and said, hey, can we get a second curb cut? Hey, there's these trees in the back. We got arborist report. Will you work with us on cutting a few trees down to build a DADU, a detached accessory dwelling unit? And they said yes. And so when it's all said and done, it'll take about 2 years to do the medium term rental on the bottom. That'll take, less than 6 months. But to get the permits and to cut the trees down and build the DADU in the back, that'll take probably almost 2 years. By when it's all said and done, they should net 4 to 500,000 on that DADU, which is greater than the amount that they put down on the house. They're going to get basically a free house in Kirkland, which for those that are not familiar, one of the highest priced areas. It's just north of where Microsoft is. So, I mean, it's the greatest thing for investors, right? So that's predominantly what I'm doing for investor clients in the greater Seattle area.
Before we dig into that, Chris, is ADUs or detached ADUs big in your area?
Not in the traditional sense. We have a lot of older homes that have carriage homes, which would be considered it is an accessory dwelling unit, but it's on the same lot of like a large Victorian house that has been converted. And that's one of the properties that I own. It's a converted 5 unit, and then it has a 6 unit in the back that's standalone.
All right. Late Star World has a question real quick. It says, what max square footage is common in the areas you're working this?
So there was a state law passed 2 years ago, and so all of Washington, it's called the Middle Housing Act, and so in that act, they said that everybody within the state of Washington has to allow for ADUs and DADUs, because there's just, when you're in Seattle, you have water and you have mountains. There's nowhere to go, right? So, what I always tell people, that Seattle will look like San Francisco today. Like, if you've ever been to San Francisco, it's just one gigantic city. Like up here, it'll be like that in 10, 20 years because of all this. Today there's, some open space and trees and everything. But in that, so they are promoting these middle housing. Those are now allowed to do 2 DADUs per lot, assuming it fits. And the minimum that each jurisdiction it can allow is 1,000 square feet. Now, some jurisdictions go higher, and for example, Kirkland you can do 1,250, and there's ways to kind of adjust a little bit around that. But typically, it's between 1,000 to 1,250 in the Seattle area. Seattle is actually updating theirs. They had talked about doing 1,500. If they do that, that'd be even better, right? Because if we can build something bigger, for every square foot we add, and the spread between build and sale price is, in this area, it's between $200 to $400 per square foot. So, if we can add another, couple hundred square feet, that's huge for us.
Chris, do you have any questions for him before I throw out Troy's question?
No. One thing I did want to actually also mention is that where we are in Lynchburg, we have a lot of ranch style brick homes that have finished basements, and that's where you see a lot of that multiple dwelling units. You have like a unit on top and a unit on bottom.
Right.
In your before we get to Troy's question, Chris, in your area, is there like a permitting issue, you would say, or getting permitting for builds? How's that in your area?
Mark, I lived out in Tucson for a little while, and I know that Tucson, Arizona does have some approved ADU plans. We do not have any of that like in here in Lynchburg. Down the road in Roanoke, Virginia, there is some of that. And actually, when I was looking it up, I didn't realize this, but they have some sort of design completion, which is sponsored by AARP of all things, for an additional dwelling unit.
Let's see, we got Troy's question here. He says, hey, Justin, what's the permitting timeline process looking like for your DADUs?
So to help the jurisdictions get more of these approved, a lot of them are doing what are called pre-approved plans. So they have, depending on the jurisdiction, like 2 to 10 plus, and those can take because they've already been inspected and audited and everything. Those can be as fast as 2 months, maybe as long as 6 months. Now, that's kind of, I would say pre-approved is like, call it 2 to 3 months. If you do a specific one to your property, it could be like 3 to 6 months. If you are like mine, where you have an ECA, you have tree issues, it can be, 6 to 12 months, right? And so just for, so you guys can understand the, how do I put this nicely? The complexity. When I was submitting my feedback on the trees, because if you take down a certain type of tree, and they have tier 1, 2, and 3, you have to replant them, and it's called revegetation. And so we submitted our info to for the permit. Well, the person that does the tree revegetation review takes 1 month to get back to you. And so we went through her feedback twice. So just to solve the tree thing was 3 months. So these are things to consider, so that when I'm working with clients, in a perfect world, we want our standards high, where it's a flat lot, alley access, no trees, no ECA, you have sewer, you have storm drain, right? If you have all that, that's easy money, or relatively easy money, right? Once you start adding these things in, where you have a tree, or you have an ECA, or you don't have storm drain, now your complexity goes up. And once you get out of that standard lane, you're in limbo land. You're adding months onto your timeline. Now, if you do what the client that closed yesterday was a house hack, if it takes an extra month, no big deal. You're living there and you're renting out the other unit, no big deal. But if this is an investment property, every month you're, depending on the cost, your entry point, you're 4 to 6K a month. So every month that you wait is a big number.
So let's
And
see.
can I
Yeah, go ahead.
actually jump in there, Mark, real quick, and just verify, because I think a lot of people think it's like a linear process. You apply for the ADU, you get all these approvals, and then you build. And I think what you're saying is that there may be multiple because I'm sure that I think that Seattle has environmental regulations that you have to abide by in addition to the zoning laws. Is that correct?
Let's
Yes.
see.
Yeah,
So,
I wish it was linear, meaning it was a check, check, check.
Right.
But if you're, in my mind, you're describing linear, and I was like, it's a bird's nest, because it can get
Yeah.
kicked back for revegetation you go through. Then it's like
Yep.
engineering, it's got to go through, and it just
There's
keeps.
multiple timelines going at once, and you're trying to just make sure that at this point in time, you are on the right track. And I think people sometimes get lost in that linear movement. I'm going to buy a house, I submit a contract, I do my inspection, I close. And that's not how it generally happens with building, in my experience. And I'm probably yours as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it like restarts the clock, right? And in a perfect world, so you would think this is actually pretty simple, but when you go into the permit, there's, gosh, I bet you 20 line items that have to get approved.
Mhm.
And if you think of that horizontally, if all 20 work on it at the same time, you should go pretty fast. But when you look at it differently and you invert it, it's like, it almost feels like, well, the engineer doesn't look at it until revegetation, right? And so it's like, well, if the revegetation takes 3 months and then the engineering starts, you're like, this can take forever, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
you're kind of at you're 100% at their mercy. So you're like trying to follow up with them, but not be uh, too pressury, because then you don't want to get pushed to the back of
Right.
the line, kind of thing. So it's like a fine line of, hey, can you help me out here, and giving them their space.
John from Florida says, nice. We're allowed a single ADU plus a DADU, 850 square foot max. Hey, what's up, Josh? Josh is tuning in. Casey is here this morning. And Harrison, Trey Better says, good morning from Central Virginia. Chris, agreed. ADUs are tough to find. Are there any larger markets in Virginia that might be open ADU building? Open to ADU
I didn't
building?
find any, but I did find Raleigh, North Carolina has some pre-approved building permits. That's about 2 hours away from Lynchburg. I think he's out in Richmond. That's a little further than it is here. But I think that's the critical point is if you can find a place that has one of the steps kind of already pre-approved, then you got to figure out those other few steps. And I have, like I said, I have the 1 6 unit that has the detached carriage house in the back. I have yet to look into adding an ADU anywhere. But if I do, I think that this would be a perfect opportunity for a partnership because I would like to find somebody who has already gone through the process. They can kind of lay it out for me and I can kind of see like all these different timelines. And then if I find a place like Raleigh that has that ADU pre-approval already, well, I can put that on there and say, okay, this is stamped approved. I need to work on all these other items.
I think one big question that always comes up is the financing side, Justin. So, how do you see people financing these builds?
So this is the complexity of doing it. So if you had a ton of money, it's really easy, right? You just pay cash for everything, but most people don't. And just for a scale of what it takes, typical purchase price in these is I'm talking Seattle here, is somewhere between 6 to 800,000. And then that existing house typically needs some sort of fix up. Call it 100,000. So you could be, 7 to 900,000 on the front house. To build a DADU, with permits to build and taxes and all, holding costs, you're probably 450, somewhere in there, and what a lot of people don't factor in is taxes, right? So it's like, yeah, is it 350 to build? Yes, 10% on that for taxes is 35,000, right? So don't forget the taxes. And then the holding costs, if your holding cost is 5,000 a month times 6, that's easily 30,000, right? By the time you build. So when it comes to, so then if you look at that total dollar amount, and typically we're not doing that all together, right? So it's not like 450 plus, 8, so it's not like 1.25 all together. You're usually doing the front house, then the build in the back. And so how does that work? So I'm going to talk about the straight investor play a little bit more straightforward. So what you can do is you can buy it on hard money. So typically, depending on your hard money lender and the margin. So if you find a great fixer upper where you can add it and then make margin on the front house, you could be as low as 10% down. But let's just say 20% down. So you get a 20% down loan on say 800,000, and let's just say that's the purchase and the rehab of the front house. So you're in for 160K on this hard money. What you're doing concurrently, so you buy the house and you're fixing it all up. Concurrently, in Washington, what you're going to do is called condoizing. And the reason to condoize is that you're now going to have a separate lot in the back. Now, why do you want a separate lot? Most people don't have money to hold both of these. So they're going to sell the front house or sell the back house or sell both of them. Selling them separate is worth more. So you get the hard money loan, you start working on the condoizing. So you have to do a site survey. You have to get a lawyer to build what's called a HOA, homeowners association document. And you have to do a condo survey. So, if you hire somebody to do this all, it's 15-ish thousand to manage that stuff. So and that takes, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months tops. Typically that's done faster than your rehab. But once the rehab is done, then you can, if you're going to keep the front house, what you do is refinance. And when you refinance, you're only refinancing that front half of the property. And once you do that, that back that you condoized is free and clear, right? That's the beauty of the whole thing of the condoizing. So you have that back now free and clear. Now you go to you can go to a bank or a hard money lender and then say, hey, I need a construction loan on the back. That construction loan, you can do 10 to 20% down. Now, that land is worth money, 50 to 100K, depending on where you're at. So that's part of your down for the back. Then you get that loan, you build that. If you have the money, you just do a cash out refi. If you have the money and the rents are there, you do a cash out refi. If you don't, then you sell it, and then you keep the front house, or you sell both of them. So just kind of reiterate one more time. Hard money to buy it, concurrently do the condoizing. Then you refinance the front house if you're going to keep it, or you sell the front house. At which point the back is free and clear. You get a new loan, construction or hard money, whatever you want to do on the back. Build the back one, refinance to keep, or sell that.
That
Can I ask a question
yeah,
on
go
that,
ahead.
actually?
Yeah.
So with that situation that you just mentioned, conceivably, could somebody find an older individual with that type of lot and walk them through this process so that they can build on the back lot, all while paying the person's I'm just trying to see the opportunity here, I guess, because I know a lot of people
Yes.
who do, they can finance certain items of homes individually. Could they do that in this situation with that added second unit on the back?
I think what you're talking about is how can existing homeowners benefit from these new DADU laws, right? And how can investors partner? So I actually was working on one this week specifically there. So this client works at Amazon, moving back to India, still with Amazon. But apparently, the cost of living adjustment, I think, is like 1/5. So let's just say you're making 250 in Seattle. Well, you're making 50K in India. Now, um, at the time, this person had a loan and was like, "Hey, I want to pay it off early." They did a 15-year
Mhm.
loan, right? And so I think the monthly payment's like 5K. Now you can imagine, and you can only rent that place max 3,000. So if he keeps it, loses 2,000 a month. Now, if you make 250 a year, maybe not too
Right.
bad. But if you're making 50,000 a year, there's no there. I mean, you'd lose half of your gross income
Mhm.
that's in where he's moving to. So he's in a pickle. So he's either got to sell it. If he sells it right now, he's gonna, in my opinion, different than his opinion, he would be taking a loss on this property from where he
Mhm.
bought it. So then I pitched him the idea as like, hey, why don't we, or a client of mine, come in and make the mortgage payment, just like you're talking about, Chris, right? So let
Right.
us come in to make the mortgage payment. Let us condoize it. At which point and then let us get the permits for the backyard. Once we get it condoized, once we get the permits and we're ready to build, we need a new loan. No, typically lenders will not give you a loan until that back part is free and clear, so they can be first position. So the thought there was, okay, get that all done. We then list the front house and sell, or refinance the front house, pay him out a agreed upon price. There's 100K difference from what I said
Right.
it's worth and what he says it's worth. But that way we can hold the property, because the opinion is in 6 months from now, rates will be lower, prices will be up. So
Mhm.
today he'll lose money, but in 6 months, the market, I think, will be higher. And so it helps him and it helps us. So that is a strategy that we do. So when I go in and I'm working with off market deals, I always present multiple options.
Mhm.
You want out now, here's a cash price. You want retail, I'll work with you and list it. You have a creative option. That could be you stay there and we build something in the back, or it could be me buying it seller financed, subject to lease option, whatever.
Right.
So I give them these 3 options. Now, if it makes sense for me, I know I can go take it to a friend or a client and be like, hey, if you have $150,000, you can make X, right? And so that's what I try to do all day, every day, is how do I find deals that would work for me? Because I know I can sell that to other people.
Right. And I think we had a guy at our most recent real estate meeting here in Lynchburg, and he said that his mindset shifted at one point where he was looking at deals and he said to himself, rather than, well, this deal's not going to work, he started saying to himself, how can I make this deal work? And I think the creativity it really strikes me. I'm a pretty creative guy myself. And I think that seeing this creativity that you're offering the homeowners in this situation where you understand the zoning law and you understand the process, I think that that's something that everybody can learn from. Always look to be creative no matter what you're doing.
Hey, I see John tuning in, Deconstructing Dreams. He's in Reno. I'm not sure if you got to meet him in Vegas, Justin. But John has kind of, I don't know how far he got, but he's been pushing to his area for the ADUs. So it's been a struggle. It's been a lot of work. He's doing short-term rental and he's pushing for the ADU side of things. So I think he's gotten pretty far on that. So this should be helpful for him. But let's see. Yes, I'm at 965 subscribers. I'm almost at 1,000. Let's see. Late Start Welt says, do they allow a DADU on a lot with a duplex?
Yes. So the very simplistic level, I was just at at the brokerage, and there was a course yesterday. So that's why I was leaning out of the screen, but it was talking about ADU education. And, to be in this game, you always got to be learning, because literally every jurisdiction has changed in all of Washington in the last years. So even Seattle just is in the process of changing now. So what the modeling and mindset is in flux with all these cities that we're dealing with. So you always got to be educated. So now back to the question. Basically, what happened with these new laws is that there is no such thing as single family housing anymore, right? So basically, every lot, if you're in a larger city, so 25,000 or more, there is really no single family lots. So depending on the location of that, you can have 2 units or 2 DADUs on it. And then if you're even closer to transit centers, you can have like up to 8, 6 for the transit center. And then if you do low income housing, you can have 2 more. So you can have 8. So what the very simplistic is a single family with 2 DADUs. Now, you could have a duplex with 1 DADU, because that's 3 dwelling units that are on the property. So yes, you can do that. And we had a client actually close earlier this month. It's doing something very similar to this, but it's not technically a DADU. So I'll just describe it really quick, because like this is another one where it's like just a grand slam deal. So very high level. It's North Seattle, great area. Listed at 990. We get it under contract for 900,000. It's a duplex. And he's going to condoize the duplex. So each of these, at 900,000, that's 450. If we condoize the duplexes, it's worth probably 500 each. So just by condoizing, that's like almost 100K of value creation. Now, the back of that lot, we're going to do what's called a unit lot subdivision. So then you break that back lot off. Instead of a DADU, because it's its own separate lot now, not condoizing the back, we're splitting the lot. The goal there is to put a 3,000 square foot house on it. Let's just say it, for round numbers, costs $400 square foot. That's 1.2 million. You can probably sell that for 2 million, maybe more, when it's done. So in about 18 months, he'll do the unit lot subdivision, get the permits, build the house, and then I'll come back in the picture. We'll list it. So after selling that, let's just say he sells for 2. Let's just say, for simple math, 10% fees and excise tax and all that. So that's 1.8, right? If it costs him 1.2 to build and it's 1.8 net, 600K. He put 20%
Do that all day
down on the
long.
front. Yeah, so he put 20% down on the front, right? So that's just for simple math. Let's say it's 200 instead of 180. So he netted 600 in the back. He put in 200 in the front. So he got a free duplex plus 400,000. Now, what does he do with the 400,000? We go roll that baby into another place, right? And this guy, this is his second deal he's done this year. So imagine, as you start getting these large chunks of money, you build, and he makes good money. He's an engineer. The goal with him, and really for all the people in Seattle, is that you're not going to get your cash flow here. What you want to do, let's just say, build. You end up having a quote unquote break even building that's a 10 unit that has, let's just say, 5 million of equity or whatever, right? Well, then you go sell that, you 1031 into the Midwest, something that makes 10% cash on cash return. Let's just say you had put 5 million in, 10% cash on cash return, right? So that's, say, call it 500,000. That's the play, the strategy in this world today.
John, Deconstructing Dream says, yes, I have a city planning commission on August 8th. They'll be giving recommendations to Reno City Council for their next meeting, all of which need to be in line with the newly state of Nevada AB 396 regulation. He also says he did meet you, but you may not remember. Yeah, Justin's a rock star. He probably forgot you, John. So, but if you want to connect with Justin, there's his Instagram profile page. So go follow him there. And like I said, so also John's YouTube channel, like I said, Deconstructing Dreams. Check it out. He's doing a lot of cool short-term rental stuff. He's using the VR glasses to paint murals and whatnot in his lot. So go check it out.
Just followed you.
All right, cool. There you go, John. And then Chris's X page, go follow him there. And Late Start Wealth, like I said, he's in Florida, but he's looking to move to Washington in 4 years. So he says, can I have a duplex condo-wise and have a lot to build on or sell?
That's exactly what we just talked about.
All right. So John,
Like
there's
you can.
there's your guy to work with. So reach out to Justin now. And I believe, I heard it through the grapevine, I believe Frank has been in contact with you. Old guy REI, right, Justin? So because Frank has ideas of moving up there in a few years. So
Yep.
yeah, he's you're working with him or giving him the blueprint also?
He's in a different structure. We won't get into his details, but we're passively looking at something that fits his financial, as we talk about in this community, buy box. So basically what I think will happen is the right property lands in the buy box and then pounce. But he's got a couple competing timelines that it's not as active, so it's kind of passive. We're kind of waiting for that perfect thing to land in the buy box and then snatch that.
Nice. John says, thanks, Justin. And then Late Star West says, house hack the duplex besides.
I'm house hack the duplex beside. Yes, 100%. This one I explained, he's not. He lives in a nice house up north. But we do have clients that are doing that. And I have a new client that I'm trying to get him to sign the listing or buyer's agreement. And I have a perfect house for him. It's right in his buy box. It's a duplex, 10,000 square foot lot. And it is exactly that. It's a duplex that's already being renovated. There's just no buyers right now, so the prices are dropping. So if you're in the market today, put an aggressive offer in, and you can get 3 to 5% below. On 700K, that's that starts adding up. 20 to call it 40K, somewhere in that ballpark, below what the list price is. Now, most people are taking that as a seller credit and then buying down the rate, whether that's permanent or a temporary rate buy down. Especially if you're living there, then you can do that.
Nice.
Can I ask a question about the condoization?
Yeah.
Is that a Washington specific term? Would it be considered that, let's say, in Utah?
Everywhere, like when you go into, when I think about condos, I always think about Florida for some reason, because they have all those
Right.
gigantic condo,
The
like
condo
hundreds.
canyon is what I call it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like 20 stories, they're right on the beach or whatever, right? Those are assuming it's not a hotel, those are condos. Like people own those individual spots. So the way to think, I think about condos is it's on a parcel of land. That's one parcel. So if there's 100
Hmm.
condos, in theory, each, and they're all the same size, each person owns 1% of that parcel, of that parcel and in the building there. So that's the condoizing process. Now, if you do a unit lot subdivision or short plat, that's where one becomes two, right? So
Hmm.
there's differences between the two. If you're condoized, you're always uh, connected, literally, because
On that
you
one plot of
have,
land.
and you typically have what is called a shared common area. So, for example,
Hmm.
when you're in that large condo, well, the parking garage, everybody uses that. Everybody uses the lobby. Everybody uses the driveway, right? Same thing if you have two people. Typically, you only have one spot, the ingress from the main street. So it's typically a common area. If there's a walkway, that's typically a common area. So you can't get rid of them. So in terms of what do buyers like more, they like a separate parcel, i.e., unit lot subdivision or a short plat. What do builders like and investors like? Condo. Why? Shorter, faster, cheaper. Right? So, but because of that, typically the same exact house, if it was a separate lot versus being a condo, i.e., within a HOA, there is a discount for that, right? Or another way to say it, if you have a standalone house, its own separate parcel number that's not in an HOA, there's a premium. So if
Right.
you can get that, and I think, it sounds like Seattle is going to shift to do these unit lot subdivision, because, quite frankly, it would, in my opinion, why create thousands and thousands of HOAs all around the city
Right.
that no one's gonna update these long term, right?
Hmm.
Like day one, yeah, like if say there's two new DADUs in on the lot, or four or whatever, it'll get populated. Everyone's new all at the same time, and they'll review it. 10 years from now, 20 different owners of all the different, who's even going to track this stuff, right? Besides having this split typically the water bill, right? When it's a condoized, there's typically only one water bill. So when you separate the lots, typically you have separate meters for the water. So, that's the separation. So I think we're going to have a bunch of uh, defunct, if you will, HOAs 5-10 years from now, because
Hmm.
all these were created, and people aren't gonna keep these up to date.
Right.
Do you see? Because I know Derek Sherrill, that ADU guy. I know his thing. He's really was pushing and hoping for some sort of financing to come out specifically for these type of ADUs and data. Do you hear whispers of that, or do you see that coming down the pipeline anytime?
There already is. It's just that you have to rethink how you're doing it. So the one is, you can just get a HELOC on your main house. Now, if you're in like California, this could work for you, because there's a lot of people in California that don't want to move to pay the capital gains. Let's just say you have 500,000 of equity, right? And let's say you can pull out 400K of that in a HELOC. You take that 400K and you go build the DADU in the back. That's your money to do the build process. Then when the DADU's done, assuming do the condoizing in California as well, you can refinance the DADU on its own separate uh, uh, parcel there, right? So then when you refinance, what do you do with that money?
Loan.
You pay off the HELOC.
Well, I think he was trying to find like hope for like them to come out with an actual like Fannie and Freddie type of mortgage for these type of accessory dwelling units and whatnot. So I think that was his vision. So I don't know. I don't know if he got any further on that, but I know that was something he was trying to push for a while. So yeah, maybe I got to reach out to him and see. But do you see this as the kind of the blueprint to help with the housing affordability? This is where the direction's headed?
That's the whole reason for this, right? What's funny, this for people outside of Seattle, this is what's funny. This is affordable housing. All these DADUs that are being built are selling for low end 550, high end in Kirkland 1.2 million. That's middle housing in Seattle, right? Which is what would be called luxury in probably where in Lynchburg, right, where you're at, Chris. That's
Yep.
probably luxury.
It's all relative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So before we dig into this a little bit more, I want to follow up on, is probably your best performing asset still yet maybe your parking lot? I don't know if people know about that. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. So my very first house, first investment property back from 2016, and I actually just moved out of that. Well, it's almost a year now, but I moved out of it in October of last year. And this is for the people here, like for late start wealth. I'm interested when you actually started, but for those who started late, which I think I started late, because I started when I was like, I think 37 or 38. And, I've been doing this like 9 years now. So anyone can get there. But that specific property, I totally hit grand slam on my very first deal. So, and people are always like, oh, it's so easy. You bought that in 2016. In 2016, that was listed at 450. I ended up closing, I think, on that at like 525 or something like that, 535, right? It was crazy back then, even in 2016, right? So now that is a duplex. And at the time, there was no such thing as house hack. I called it the and one. If you're familiar with basketball, I was like, well, I want to live somewhere and I want the and one, like, future income, right? Well, I bought this parcel, duplex on a large parcel, 2/3 of an acre in South Seattle. That's basically the last house in Seattle. The next house, or actually the two houses over, is Burien, which is the next city. So in that, for 8 years, as I'm building my portfolio, making the most money I ever made, I lived in a 1 bedroom on the top and I rented the 3 bedroom on the bottom. I started as a single family rental, then went to short term rental, then went to medium term rental. And then about halfway in, or 2023, I heard about, through a friend of mine, this is why networking is huge. You never know what you're going to pick up just talking to somebody. I was in Detroit talking to a investor friend that was at Amazon, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I rent out my garage." Oh, tell me more about this, right? So that's how I heard about Neighbor. And so literally from meeting him at Starbucks in Detroit to the Detroit airport, I set up um, my first listing. Now that listing started in March of 23. And I use actually Neighbor, and there's another one called Peer Storage. So imagine Airbnb and VRBO. They're like the majority of the short-term rental. These two are, I'm assuming, 90+%, maybe more, of the parking. So since, I don't know if you guys can see that. This is just so it's almost 46,000 I've made just in parking since March of 23, and that doesn't count my peer storage income. Now, what does that look like today? So today I have, I think, 26 lots. My gross per month is 3,800. Now I've got to pay fees and stuff to Peer Storage. So I net 3,600 on parking alone. Now, just to give you a frame of my cost structure on that, I do have my primary residence or my old loan at it's like 3% or something like that, right? So my PITI for that property, I think is like, call it 3,200. Now I'm paying the utilities for the short-term rental there, right? And then I have landscaping. So I want to say, just for simple math, let's just say 32 and 800, just to round it, say it's 4,000. So I have 3,600 in parking, 3,600 for the medium-term rental, 1,600 for the one bedroom. So I'm around 9,000. So if you do that math on that one property, I generate 5,000 a month. And here's the kicker, I can build 8 houses on that lot today. I'm land banking that for sometime in the future. I'll build at least 8, but by the time I build, probably it'll double. I could build like an apartment complex. It is kind of on a slope, and it is narrow but long. It's like 60 feet by 450, something like that. So it's kind of a unique lot shape. I'm trying to now buy out all my neighbors. If I buy out all my neighbors, now I'm talking like a massive chunk, right? So that's the end game.
I love that. Yep. So a lot of people, like I said, they may not know
Yeah.
the parking lot that you had and renting that out. So Late Star Well says everyone started late. Just ask them. Ever hear someone say I should have started later? Frank, old guy REI is here. He says Justin always thinking outside the box. I really like that about him. And then yeah, and here is the PayPal link if people have not ordered their shirts from Frank yet, the one rental at a time fundraiser shirt that he is raising money to donate to the Blind Center. So go order your shirt. Hold on, let me goof around with this real quick. So this is shoots, it's not, there we go. So there's the back, there's the front. Oh, hold on. There you go. And then yeah, so hold on, let me get it. There we go. And then Martin Josh says, I need to get my agent's license. Any recommendations for that, Justin?
Yes. Yeah, we actually talked about it. He was up here about a month ago. I'm at Keller Williams. If you're at Keller Williams, they have a program where they basically will help you get the education for free, and then you take the license. So
That's right.
I'm at Keller Williams. I'd highly recommend that. But even if you don't and you do the accelerated pay version, I'm drawing a blank on the company. If I think about it, I'll bring it up. But I want to say it was only a couple $100, and you do the 90 hours of training, and then you do the test, and then in Washington you got to do fingerprints and all that, and then get registered. But you could do that if you really put your mind to it. 2 months, worst case 3 months. Now, if you guys are investors like me, like I had already owned 45 properties before I even thought about getting my license. So what I would do is I was still at Amazon, and I would literally have my laptop, personal laptop, next to my Amazon laptop, and it tracks you, right, on the training. So I would just move my finger on the cursor while I was at work, and
You're
so
not
I
supposed
banged
to
out.
tell him that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like most people that are agents actually don't know anything about real estate.
Yeah.
Like
That's true.
not most of it is the actual stuff that's on the test is actually all these one-off use cases.
Yeah.
So I was able to go through all of it and then just study the tests and then be able to pass it first time. So if you are an investor already, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
people that
agree.
don't even have high school degrees have their agent license, right? And what I'm learning, it's more psychology than real estate to be an agent.
Right.
Ray's tuning in. So Ray, if you guys haven't seen, Ray was on yesterday talking about Airbnb short-term rentals, and he gave Justin a shot. I guess you guys met up recently, and then he's also doing the photos for one of your listings, right? I believe. And I don't know if he got it to you, but yesterday he said he has them for you, or he's going to get them to you. But Ray's
Yeah.
a good guy. Yeah. So
Yeah,
we're
we got
giving.
them. And more importantly, got them paid too. So, yeah, we use Ray for all our photos and drones, and we're on a, gosh, we probably got, we went from having predominant buyers to predominant sellers right now, which is great because like if you have a seller, they typically want to buy, so you can get a sell and a buy. But yeah, I have like by the end of August, I'll have 7 or 8 listings live. And so obviously every time we call Ray up, send him out and take all the pictures and everything for us. So he's been a huge help in our business to grow that agent side, because pictures, online, like 2/3 of the buyers come from, Redfin, Zillow, Keller Williams, what you name the site. So the pictures sell the property. So Ray does a great job on that.
Yeah, Ray's doing awesome stuff. So go check out Ray. I might have his YouTube channel. He started a YouTube channel also, What Pros Do. When I find it, I'll put the link in the chat. So go check him out and subscribe. Anything else you guys want to dig into on this? Anything else you're working on? Promote, whatever's. Chris, what about you?
No, I don't think so. I think that in this video, I think I learned a ton more than I usually do. So thank you so much for sharing all this. It's interesting to consider the way that you can take an existing property and just convert it and add value. I thought that was very insightful. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, since you are on the econ side and Justin was talking about rates maybe coming down, prices going up, would you agree with that from your econ side of things, Chris?
Historically, if you were to look at that, that would be the case.
Yeah,
But
just his
I
idea,
don't. Yeah, I don't. I'm unclear right now. It's we had a discussion at our local real estate meetup where a lender was there and he suggested something that I thought was very interesting. If the lender is lending you money for 30 years, but they expect you to refinance in 3 or 4 years, how are they going to recoup that money? Well, they're probably going to charge higher rates and higher points and items on the front end. Is that really what's happening? And at what point will they kind of fall back from that and allow rates to naturally flow the way they used to? Because if you remember the last time they cut rates at the Fed, interest rates went up. Will that occur again? So historically, I do think that there is a correlation, but over the last few years, the correlation has not been there. As you raise rates, in general, you're going to lower the price, but that didn't happen.
Do you think they should get rid of Powell, or he should resign or step
Well, I
aside?
mean, I think he's done in May, so I don't think it's going to be. And I don't think Powell is controlling the interest rates in the mortgage market, in my opinion. I think it is those investors that are kind of setting the rate based on the market that they see. And until I would have to really dive deep into the data. Is there an avenue for investors to move from those what we would call like relatively safe investments to safer investments that have a higher return? I don't know. Could it have changed? Are we changing that right now? Are we in that, to quote Powell, transitionary phase, right? Are we transitioning? Because at some point, the people who set the rates at, like, say, Rocket and all that, right? Fairway, they're going to say, well, we're losing out because this guy went down a little bit. We need to go down a little bit. We're just not there yet. And Mike always talks about how the consumer is driven and how the consumer can hold their wallet when they're uncertain. Well, investors can do certain activities when they're uncertain as well. And once that uncertainty wanes, I think we're going to start seeing more of that competition among the interest rates. And competition in interest rates, it doesn't drive the price up, it drives it down because they're competing for us to get loans with them.
All right, so Justin has to bounce. He has a meeting. Flavio is in Grandview, Washington. Maybe, I don't know how far that is from you. Maybe you guys can get coffee or something, but he does have one last question. So maybe if you can write that down, connect with him. It just says, can you add an ADU having a mortgage on the house? So Flavio, maybe you guys
yes. Short answer is yes.
Okay.
The question is, what money do you use? That's the next question. So Flavio, if you hit me up on my Instagram, DM me, and then let's catch up. All right,
Justin. Thanks for doing
Justin.
this, man. All right, man.
I appreciate the time. Thanks for having me. Hopefully I come back, become a regular.
All right, man. Cool. Bye.
See ya. Bye. got to figure out how to exit out of here.
Oh,
Or there it is. I see it. Sorry. Bye.
No. All right, Chris, you're on the hot seat then right now. Are you?
I got it like a little bit, maybe a minute or two.
Oh, you too? Jesus Christ! All right. Well, if you came on time, then all right. Well, we can wrap.
I know.
Well, it's good to have you back on, man. It's been a while. I know you're
Yeah.
busy. Hopefully, you graduate soon or whatever you're goofing around.
I hope so. I hope so.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in. Have a great start to your weekend. Have a great Friday, and I'll be back Monday with Joel and Lauren. So I'll see you folks. Have a good weekend. Thanks, Chris.
Bye, guys.